See, now we will study about Ambedkar's views on untouchability. His view basically comes under the subaltern view. Now, most of this we have already studied. Previously, I have also talked about the subaltern view. I have also covered the topic of untouchability. Now, Ambedkar is a central linchpin when it comes to challenging untouchability, when it comes to challenging the oppressive nature of Hindu caste system. So most of the things that we discussed, most of these points, they stem out from the various writings of Ambedkar, how Ambedkar analyzed caste system. He is the central linchpin, and all the other literature that you see on caste, it is based on Ambedkarite writings. It is based on the writings of B.R. Ambedkar. Now B.R. Ambedkar, he was a Mahar. He belonged to Mahar caste of Maharashtra. So he was labeled as an untouchable, a Avarna, or a Panchama, or Achut. So his entire life, it was filled with various examples of discrimination, humiliation, disrespect, denigrations that were extended to him during his life. For example, in school, being a individual of the lower caste, he was made to drink from a separate pot. Therefore, his writings are not just merely academic or intellectual in nature. His writings on untouchability stems out from his life experiences. Therefore, his life experiences are guiding his intellectual writings. His life experiences are guiding his ideology, his opinions. Therefore, he is going to severely criticize the caste system. Now, what does he talk about caste system? He argues that caste system in case of India, it is a product of Hindu ideology. Caste is a core institution that is prevalent in Hindu society. In fact, caste is a product of Hindu ideology, Hindu value systems, Hindu beliefs and Hindu sentiments. They are deeply rooted in the institution of caste. In fact, caste derives its legitimacy, its justification from Hindu religious texts. It is the Hindu religious texts which justify, which legitimize the institution, practice of caste. He severely criticized Hindu Dharma Shastras. Rather, he publicly burned various copies of Manusmriti. So this was his act of rebellion against Hindu religion. At one point of time, he is going to argue that Hinduism is the worst form of religion. When Hindu Dharma Shastras, Hindu religious texts, they legitimize the condition of the position of various castes in the caste structure. How Brahmins, they are the most superior, they are born from the mouth of the supreme being, Kshatriyas from the arms, Vaishyas from the thighs, and Shudras from the feet. Whereas Ati Shudras or Panchamas or Avarnas are not given any place in the Hindu caste society. They are not castes, rather they are outcasts, suffering from social exclusion, political marginalization, economic marginalization, psychological inferiority. So he severely criticizes Hindu ideological religious texts. He argues, in fact, these religious texts, these are written by Brahmins. Since these are written by Brahmins, they are going to reflect the ideology of Brahmins. They are going to reflect the interest of Brahmins. These texts will strengthen the position of Brahmins. These texts ensure that only Brahmins can become priests. Only Brahmins can become religious scholars. Only Brahmins constitute the spiritual authority in case of India. Therefore, Brahmins monopolizing over religion, declaring themselves as intermediaries to God. In fact, he argues it is the Brahminic ideology that is reflected in Hindu texts because these are written by Brahmins. Hindu culture is a product of Brahminic culture. J.S. Gore argued, J.S. Gore ने बोला था ना, it is the Brahmins. J.S. Gore talked about in a positive sense. Brahmins ensured that Hindu culture could be transmitted across generation. Brahmins produced Hindu culture. Brahmins are the carriers and transmitters of Hindu culture. This is something that J.S. Gore talked about when he was talking about the concept of Vidya, how Brahmins were transmitting Vidya, that is religious knowledge or text. J.S. Gore was having a positive orientation. He was talking in a positive manner. But here B.R. Ambedkar argues this Hindu text reflecting the ideology, the interest of Brahmins. These texts written by Brahmins establish their hegemony. Brahmins are not ruling by force. Hegemony means they are ruling by controlling the minds of the masses. Because essentially it is these religious texts which are responsible for building up the cognitive structures of Indian masses. These are injected into the minds of Indian people. And these are injected in such a manner, they are termed as the will or commandment of God. They are termed as the dictator of God that must be followed by the human beings, irrespective of their caste orientations. ठीक है? So, it is like a frog in a well. Frogs are living in a well, they are not aware of the outside situation. Their reality is limited. ठीक है? Similarly, by giving, we can say, constructing an intellectual or cognitive barriers beyond which an individual will not be able to think. This is something that was done by Brahmins, right? And that too very smartly. Brahmins being the wise man, monopolizing our wisdom and intellect in case of ancient India, and therefore they were shaping the minds of the masses by creating Hindu religious texts, Hindu ideology. Since it is the will of the God, the lower caste, they readily accepted their status, they readily accepted the identity that was imposed on them by the upper caste, the identity of being an untouchable. It was identity which was not chosen by them, rather it was imposed on them. They readily accepted their status, they readily accepted performing the menial, derogatory, defiling and this polluting occupations, and that too for centuries. They accepted their inferior status because to them this is the will of the God. So here consensus and consent that was adopted of the lower caste, it is based on their it is a false consent. This is based on falsification of reality, because Brahmins through these texts, these texts are injected into the minds of the people, thereby indoctrinating the people, wherein people possess false consciousness and they are not able to see the true reality. Their objective experience is the experience of exploitation. That is their objective experience. Their objective experience is the experience of oppression, subjugation, subordination and domination by the upper caste. But their objective experience is hidden. Rather, what they have is subjective feelings which are guided and controlled by Brahmins through their control over the religion. So it is these texts are creating a false picture of reality, a distorted picture of reality. In fact, the reality seems to the lower caste as a natural, proper, fair and legitimate. They are not challenging the reality. They are not challenging their true situation. They are not revolting or rebelling against the oppressive Hindu caste system. Rather, readily accepting the caste system because their consent and consensus, it is based on falsification of reality. So this is something that he argues, and he also talks about that how caste is a form of slavery in which the lower caste for centuries they are performing these menial, dead end, defiling, derogatory, non-rewarding occupations, right? Not as a matter of choice, rather these occupations are imposed on them. But since they are subsumed or they are consumed by religion, right? They are deeply indoctrinated by religion. They are not aware of the true reality, and they are performing these occupations, and they are doing it for centuries. In fact, this is a form of slavery, right, in which the lower caste are slaves. Lower caste are made to perform these menial occupations. Okay. The consensus of lower caste is creating an harmony in the village, reciprocity in the village, but this is a imposed harmony. This consensus is a false consensus. So this slavery is going on for centuries. He argues that Jajamani relations is a form of bondage. It is a form of serfdom. Why? I being a barber, my son is also going to be a barber, his son is also going to be a barber, and we will be serving our patrons for successive generations. But why is this the case? Why are the individuals not given choice of occupation, freedom of occupation? So this is a form of bonded labor, it is a form of slavery, it is a form of serfdom. So therefore the functionality of the village is ensured through the oppression of the lower caste, through the slavery of the lower caste. It is the lower caste, by performing these menial and demeaning occupations, they are keeping the society functional. Otherwise, who is going to perform these occupations? In fact, they are absorbing the impurity, and that is why they are impure, and they are ensuring the purity of the Brahmins. Then he argues that this division of labor based on caste, that is cultural division of labor, it is absolutely inefficient. It is determined by birth, it is ascriptive in nature, it does not depend on one's innate aptitude, potential, skills and inclination to work. A Sachin Tendulkar cannot be a Lata Mangeshkar. So it brings absolute inefficiency, and that is why Indian society is stagnating, that is why Indian society is non-progressive, and that is Indian society is absolutely backward. Then he argues that caste is divisive in nature. Gandhiji talked about that caste ensures division of labor. हम पढ़ेंगे. But he argues caste does not only ensure division of labor, it also ensures division of laborers. Why? It promotes disunity among the people. As people are fragmented, or Hindu society is segmented, it is fragmented into multiple castes. And these castes are maintaining distance and separation from each other. Okay. Now this creates disunity in Hindu society, because Hindu society is segmented, fragmented, there is distance and separation between these different groups belonging to different castes, having different subcultures or different social worlds. And this makes the Hindu society vulnerable to attack from the foreign sources. since Hindu society is weak, vulnerable, segmented, fragmented, it has various fault lines, it is not strong, it is not resilient because it is not united, and thereby it is susceptible to attacks from the outside forces, susceptible of invasions, and that is why Hindus suffered from Islamic subjugations and subsequently Christian colonialism, centuries of foreign rule, due to this their internal or inherent weaknesses. So these are the various things that he talked about. Then obviously caste is a form of what? Systematic discrimination, in which inequality is institutionalized in society through the institution of caste, and this inequality is perpetuated for eternity, right? Oppression, subjugation, subordination, all this stuff. Now initially Ambedkar was very interested in reforming the Hinduism, right? He launched various campaigns, efforts, protest movements, struggles to ensure full integration or participation of the Avarnas or untouchables into the mainstream of Hindu society, so that they will be fully participating in Hindu society, so as to do away with their social exclusion, to allow them to access the social space of Hindu society. So initially he was not rebelling against Hinduism. In fact, he wanted to reform Hinduism, and that is why he launched various protest movements, struggles, campaigns like Mahad Satyagraha and Pune Satyagraha. Through these he wanted, or he unified the lower caste, that these lower caste, by engaging in collective action, they should be accessing the common tanks. Common tanks, they were denied, untouchables were denied access to the common tanks or commonwealths. This is something that we already understood. Through Pune Satyagraha, he emphasized on forceful entry of temples. What does forceful entry of temple indicates? Forceful entry of temple indicates that untouchables do want to get access to Hindu religion. They do want to ensure religious inclusion. They do want to worship Hindu gods. That is why they are forcefully entering the temples. Otherwise, why would anyone forcefully enter the temple? So this forceful temple entry, all this is an indication that Ambedkar was very much interested in a reformation of Hinduism, right? By creating an egalitarian, non-oppressive Hinduism. This could only be done by ensuring the total participation of the so-called untouchables in the mainstream, or their full integration into the Hindu society, by giving them social space, right? Providing to them access to God, water, which was formerly denied to them. But his campaigns could not achieve much success, and therefore he was disillusioned, and thereafter he decided that I will not be able to reform Hinduism, and therefore he argued that Hinduism is the worst form of religion. It is this religion which is responsible for centuries of slavery of lower caste, for centuries of oppression of lower caste, and therefore he argued that the lower caste should strive to access an alternative social structure. They should strive to become a part of alternative religion, a religion which is going to be egalitarian and non-oppressive in nature. And therefore he advocated that the lower caste should reject Hinduism and they should convert to Buddhism. And in fact he converted 4 lakh Mahars of Maharashtra, and they were brought within the fold of Hinduism. He himself got converted to Hinduism. Now this is known as Neo-Buddhist movement, through which a large number of lower caste Hindus or low caste Mahars, they got converted or they adopted Buddhism. And that is why he said, I was born a Hindu. In my birth I had no choice, but now being an adult I have choice, and I will never die a Hindu. This is something that he argued. Then he talks about that as long caste is there, there will be outcast. Outcasts are there because there is a caste system. अगर caste system नहीं होगा तो outcast कहाँ से होगा? So untouchables are there because of the caste system. Untouchability is a product of caste system. Therefore, he argued that reforms in caste won't work. Rather, caste institution has no place in modern India. ठीक है, he was out and out modernist. He completely rejected traditions because Hindu traditions to him, the Hindu reflected to him the horrors of the past, and therefore he argued that total annihilation, total destruction and total elimination of caste systems should take place, and therefore he advocated for annihilation of caste. So this is something that he argues, and this is something that is written about. It is a subaltern view. B.R. Ambedkar. He belonged to the Mahar caste of Maharashtra, and he was an untouchable, an Avarna or a Panchama, and his biography was replete with daily accounts of humiliation and disrespect. He had to drink water from a separate pot during school. Now he is describing the nature of caste system, that caste is a product of Hindu ideology and beliefs. It is legitimized by Hindu religious texts like Dharma Shastra, and therefore he publicly burned copies of Manu Smriti. Now these Hindu religious texts, they were written by Brahmins, they reflect Brahminic ideology and fulfill their interest. Now from here I will be moving to this, right. Now this ensures Brahminic hegemony. Brahminic hegemony is promoted through Hindu text, which leads to indoctrination of untouchables, right. And this hegemony or indoctrination, it presents a distorted view or picture of reality, and reality seems to be a natural, just, proper, fair and legitimate, and this generates false consciousness among the Dalits. And due to this consent and consensus, there is a consent and consensus to oppression is secured through the will of the God or the sanction of religion. Therefore, pursuing occupation becomes a matter of cultural obligation, duty, dharma. You should be performing that and menial occupation because it is your dharma or duty or obligation or kartavya. And the current position of untouchables is justified through the caste system. For example, through the principle of karma. You are born as an untouchable because you might have engaged in some bad actions or bad karma during your previous birth. So bad karma, bad actions leads to bad consequences, and bad consequences is you are born as an untouchable. But if you truly fulfill your duty of an untouchable, perform these occupations extended to them, right, thoroughly and with commitment and dedication, in the next birth you might be given higher place in the caste system, right. Then second, caste is a form of systematic discrimination where inequalities are institutionalized in Hindu society for perpetuity. It ensures oppression, subordination, domination and subjugation of Dalits, and thereby it extends humiliation and stigma is attached to them. Point number third, caste is a form of slavery. Lower caste are slaves to upper caste. No freedom or choice of occupation. In fact, he argues that Jajmani relations is a form of bondage and serfdom. And form of slavery in the sense that the defiling, dirty, polluting, menial, inferior, derogatory occupations are forcefully imposed on them for centuries. This is not from. And it keeps they performing these dead and menial tasks, it keeps the society functional by absorbing the impurity of the society and ensuring the purity of Brahmins. Therefore, he argues that this cultural division of labor, it is not based on skills, aptitude or choice or interest. It promotes inefficiency, right? And this inefficiency is a reason for stagnation, lack of innovation and backwardness of Hindu or Indian society. And then he argues that caste is divisive in nature. Caste is not just a form of division of labor, but also promotes division of laborers. Keeps the Hindu society fragmented, promotes distances and separation between people, and therefore there is a lack of Hindu unity. And this lack of Hindu unity, it made the society vulnerable to external attacks or foreign rule, and thereby to Islamic subjugation and Christian colonialism. Right. Then initially he put in various efforts aimed at full integration of untouchables in the mainstream of Hindu society. He launched various Protestant movements like Mahad Satyagraha and Pune Satyagraha to fight for right of Mahars to get access to common tanks and forceful temple entry, that is access to God and religion. None, however, these campaigns were not successful and it leads to his disillusionment with Hindu religion, and he argues Hinduism is the worst form of religion and therefore lower caste should search for an alternative social structure or alternative religion which is egalitarian and non-oppressive, and therefore advocated for conversion to Buddhism. And this in this conversion to Buddhism, he converted 4 lakh Mahars to Buddhism, and this is known as a neo-Buddhist movement. And therefore he rejected Hinduism, he revolted or rebelled against Hinduism. Therefore rejection of Hinduism. I was born a Hindu, I had no choice, but I will never die as a Hindu. Then he argues that as long as there is caste, there will be an outcast. Caste should be given no place in modern India. Mere reform won't work. Therefore, total destruction, total elimination, total annihilation of caste is required. And therefore, he advocated for annihilation of caste. See, Ambedkar, this is something that we studied in modernization of Indian tradition when I was dealing with Ambedkar's perspective on modernization. There I talked about how Ambedkar emphasized on modernization over tradition. He argued that Hindu traditions and history, it reflects the horrors of the past. It reflects the atrocities, the oppression that was committed on the lower caste or Avarnas or Panchamas. Therefore, he argued that we should shift away from traditions. Rather, we should look into the future. Right? We should focus on modernization because modernization will give us hope for the future. And since constitution is a modern document, democracy is a modern institution. Ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity, they are product of modern political thought, product of French Revolution. Therefore, if we focused, especially in the political realm, we should be focusing on constitutionalism. Emphasis should be on constitutionalism. Democracy gives you choice, freedom, individuality. It provides equality to all. Right? Promotion of ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity. Emphasis should be on fundamental rights. Article 14 हमने पढ़ा था, 15 Article 14 पढ़ा equality before law, 15 and 16 reservation in education and employment, 17 abolition of untouchability, Article 19 right to freedom of choosing one's own occupation or profession, Article 21 right to live a dignified life, a life of honor, dignity and respect, which was denied to the untouchables prior to modernization. So this is something that we focused on. Therefore, he argued that Hindu religious scriptures, Dharma Shastras, Smritis, Gita, that should not be a sacred document for you. The sacred document for you should be constitution. Should be sacred document. You should revere it and worship it. Therefore, you will see that amongst the lower castes, they highly respect the constitution. It is a sacred document for them because it provided them reservation, it provided them equality, it provided them justice, it provided them fairness, it abolished oppressive or subjugated nature of Indian society. Therefore, he also emphasized on modern Western education, that this modern Western education, Western sciences, Western philosophy, it is a path to enlightenment. Therefore, focus on this. You will develop critical reasoning, critical thinking. You will get awakened, enlightened. You will develop a spirit of doubt and inquiry. Since you did not have a spirit of doubt or inquiry, that is why you were readily accepting to the Brahmanic ideology, domination and hegemony through the medium of various religious texts that were written by Brahmins. Now you will be developing a critical thought. And since how in Europe, with the dawn of modern Western education, with the dawn of science, scientific spirit, how church was challenged, you can do the same thing as well here. So, the path to enlightenment makes one critical and rational, makes you more awakened, right? Thereby you can assert and fight for your rights, fight for something that you holds to be true, right? Satyagraha. It will also leads to, because it is utilitarian. Modern Western education is utilitarian as well. If you are studying applied and physical sciences, thereby you will be developing skills, getting skills. Therefore, thereby you will also be able to uplift your economic status, because you will be able to access modern jobs and employment. Then these are the various efforts that were taken by him. First was Jat Path Todak Samaj. Through this he wanted to ensure that annihilation of caste, that it should be taking place, right? Jat ko todna, destruction of caste. Then he wrote a journal, ठीक है? That journal is known as Bahishkrit Bharat, a journal, and this journal, it was used to highlight the various atrocities that were being committed on untouchable. It used to highlight the oppressive and discriminatory nature of caste system. It used to bring to the public, and especially to the lower caste, about this nature of Hindu caste system, how Hindu religious scriptures are justifying or legitimizing the caste system, and thereby it kind of promoted true Dalit consciousness amongst the lower caste, made them aware, awakened. They became aware of the true situation or true reality. So this was the purpose behind launching Bahishkrit Bharat, a journal wherein through his writings he was trying to awaken the lower caste, and as well as trying to challenge and highlight or portray the discriminatory and oppressive nature of the caste system. So therefore, Bahishkrit Bharat journal to expose the true nature of caste system, and therefore it acted as a counter ideology, counter hegemony to the Brahmanic ideology or Brahmanic hegemony, and to promote true Dalit consciousness. It is a form of Dalit literature, you can argue. Then he launched All India Scheduled Caste Federation. In this Scheduled Caste, All India Scheduled Caste Federation, he wanted it to be an umbrella organization under which Dalits belonging to multiple castes, they can come together, form a platform and fight for their rights. So this was his attempt to ensure horizontal mobilization of Dalits, and thereby ensuring unification of Dalits so that they can fight for their rights. So All India Scheduled Caste Federation to ensure unification of Dalits, and through this he was trying to bring various communities or various castes of untouchables together under one single umbrella platform. So therefore, unification of Dalit aimed at horizontal solidarity. Then he also formed the Republic Party of India in 1956. The purpose of this Party of India was to fight elections in the democratic India, since it was formed after independence in 1956, to win elections and thereby to capture the power. And once we will capture the power, then state will represent the interest, voice and concerns of the lower caste and untouchables, right? They will find a platform wherein their interest, voices and concerns could be reflected and could be accommodated and could be fulfilled as well. Therefore, Republic Party of India, political party to capture power and represent the voices and interest of Dalits. Therefore, now see, the interesting thing is, in the contemporary times, Ambedkar is revered among the lower caste, the Dalits. He is in fact being worshipped. Whenever you go to visit the house of any lower caste, you will definitely find the portrait of B.R. Ambedkar, a picture of B.R. Ambedkar, right, being hanged on the wall of the house. But it is an irony that when he formed this party and when he was fighting for elections, and mind this, that he stood up in elections from a reserved seat, a seat which was reserved from scheduled caste, and still he was not able to win, right? The people of that constituency, they did not vote for B.R. Ambedkar, right? So this is quite an irony. I'm sure in the modern times he would have won with a huge mandate, but this was not the case at that point of time. So therefore, point number 3 and 4, what he is trying to do, he is trying to highlight the collective experience of untouchables, that they are humiliated, they are oppressed. So they share collective experiences, and since they share collective experiences, they have collective interest, they should be homogenized, they have collective interest, and therefore they should be homogenized and unified, and they should be brought on a collective platform, and from this collective platform, collective action should be launched, in which they will be fighting for justice, fighting for rights, fighting for fairness, fighting for equality. Therefore collective action, mobilization and assertion. Now he ensured reservation of LC's lower caste in education, administration and legislature. This is something that we already know, and thereby he contributed to economic upliftment of Dalits, right? Because he was a large number of Dalits, by enjoying the fruits or benefits of reservation, they are able to uplift their economic position, right? They were able to enter the middle class of India. हमने देखा the dispersed inequalities. So there was, due to the contributions of B.R. Ambedkar, we could shift from cumulative inequalities to dispersed inequalities, and thereby class hierarchies were disturbed. ठीक है? Therefore class became more mobile, and thereby it contributed to the dynamism, vibrancy in case of Indian society. और reservation की बात आती है तो it's something that I need to discuss with you, that during the British, in second round table conference, it was also the demand of Ambedkar, and also it was extended to the untouchables were referred to as depressed classes by the British. So British extended them the provision of separate electorate, and this was also the demand of Ambedkar, that only Dalit, just there was a separate electorate for Muslims, that only Muslims are going to vote for Muslim candidates. Therefore they demanded and they got separate electorate from the British, that is only Dalits or the lower caste or untouchables will be voting for the lower caste or untouchables. This was separate electorate. Now Gandhiji was severely against this provision, because he argues that this is going to undermine our unity, this is going to undermine our nationalism, right? Nationalistic feeling and consciousness as well. ठीक है? So this is highly dangerous for our society. It will further increase the fault lines in Hindu society. It will further divide the Hindu society, because now Dalits are going to be separate from the rest of the upper caste Hindus, at least politically, and since politics also governs the social and economic of the people, economic aspects of the people, and thereby now this is going to create a wide gulf, a wide fissures in the Hindu society. So this is going to undermine the unity of Hindu society, as well it will widen the fault lines, and mainly it is going to undermine our nationalism, it is going to undermine the nationalistic consciousness, and undermine maybe our future goal of independence or self-rule as well. So therefore Gandhi was severely against it. In fact, Gandhi went to commit fast unto that until and unless you abolish these separate electorates, I will be going to commit fast till my death, because this is highly dangerous for the nation. And thereby Ambedkar was forced to negotiate with Gandhi, and thereby Pune Pact was signed. Ambedkar was forced in the sense that Ambedkar did want a separate electorates for Dalits, because if electorates are joined, if there are joint electorates, then there will be upper caste as well as lower caste as well. Then upper caste, which are maybe having significant voice in that constituency, these upper caste, they might choose a Dalit representative of their choice. Now this Dalit representative might be a chamcha or stooge. This is something that we'll talk about in Kansi Ram, when I'll talk about Kansi Ram. Might be a chamcha or stooge to the upper caste interest, and therefore he was not in favor of joint electorates, but he burst under the pressure, because he argued that if we would have gone ahead with separate electorates, then Dalits would have been blamed, they would have been targeted, and they would have been more ostracized, and more atrocities and oppression would have been committed against them. Therefore he was forced to sign into Pune Pact, and according to which a negotiation or compromise was reached, and the Dalits or lower caste, they were provided reservation in legislature in proportion to their population. ठीक है. Then he advocated for industrialization and urbanization. With the rise of industrialization, there will be caste free and caste neutral occupations, and there will be rational division of labor, a division of labor which is rational, which is based on one's aptitude, choice and skills, which is not based on prescriptions of culture. It is not a form of cultural obligation, duty or dharma, and thereby efficiency is going to be maximum. This is based on my own choice, volition, skills, right? Through this I am going to reflect my inner self, I am going to fully express myself, therefore it is achievement based, it is based on achievement criteria, right? And thereby efficiency is going to be increased in our society. So I being an individual will try to maximize my utility by performing a particular occupation which is as per my aptitude, choice and skills. Okay. And therefore he argues that caste has no place in modern India. Caste should be replaced by class, because through class what is possible? Through class social mobility is possible. We will constitute an open society and there will be dynamism and change and vibrancy in our society, because the hierarchies are not going to be fixed or rigid. Hierarchy is not going to be immobile, and our society in which there will be open society, ascriptive based nature, there will be more efficiency and innovation is going to be there. So therefore we should be moving towards in direction of modern India. Then he criticizes as villages are the dens of oppression and exploitation. Why they are dens of oppression and exploitation? Because he argues villages constitute a geographical space in which the social institution of caste is embedded. विलेज ऐसा geographical space प्रोवाइड करते हैं जिसमें social institution of caste inhabit करता है या उसमें embedded है. Therefore villages are the dens of oppression and exploitation. Village is where the caste resides, and therefore he advocated for urbanization. Urbanization going to provide anonymity to the individuals. In urbanization there will be individualism, autonomy, choice, agency, free will, and we will not be dominated by fatalism anymore, and we will not be controlled by culture or especially tradition and religion anymore. We will be looking towards modernity because cities are linked with modernity. Then priesthood, he argues that priesthood, it should not be monopoly of Brahmins, that only Brahmins should not be allowed to become priest. Rather, occupation should not be fixed by birth. Any occupation or profession, it should not be fixed by birth in modern India. It should not be ascriptive. Rather, it should be based on achievement and skills. Therefore, he argued that people of all caste and social backgrounds should be given equal opportunity to become a priest. Now, since equal opportunity, he is talking about skills, he is talking about equal opportunity, and he argues that there should be an all India exam. There should be a competitive examination in order to judge the skills of a particular person, whether that person possesses the aptitude to become a priest or not, and whether that person possesses sufficient knowledge of shastras or scriptures or not. Only these people selected on the basis of merit, they should be allowed to become priest. तो मैंने merit नहीं लिखा, वो लिख लीजिएगा. Recruitment on the basis of competitive examination, testing knowledge of scriptures and shastras, and should be on the basis of merit. So now this is going to challenge the caste system. How? Because if a lower caste, and the traditional nature of the caste system is such that stigma of pollution is attached to the lower caste. Now, if lower caste could be able to clear this competitive examination, obviously they will be provided some reservation. If they are able to become priest in the temples of modern India, then we might be challenging caste system, because temples, Garbhagriha, in which the deity resides, is the most purest place. And if a Dalit can become a priest on the virtues of his merit and skills and deep reading of scriptures, if he can become priest, right? फिर वो जो deity का स्नान करवाना होता है, कपड़े बदलने होते हैं, if he can do that access to Garbhagriha, it is a representative or synonymous of dilution of caste system. So this is very important thing that he advocated, that he argued that interdining it could counter notions of purity and pollution. Why? Because different caste will be eating food together, and thereby it will promote greater interaction, exchange of food and drinks, interdining, and therefore there will be greater integration. It is going to reduce distances and separation between people, and it is especially challenging the notions of purity and pollution. And therefore, he argues that it could dilute the caste system, but it is not going to lead to complete annihilation of caste. Neither priesthood, neither interdining could lead to complete annihilation of caste. And this is something that is substantiated by Andhra Bhede, especially in Andhra Bhede, peculiar tenacity of caste. We studied how in the modern times caste is getting diluted, right? People in modern day schools, in modern day offices, they are eating food together in college canteen or lunch rooms of modern offices. Okay. Even in the community feast, the different castes are sitting together. If they are not sitting together, if they refuse to sit together, this is going to create a major controversy or scandal in the modern India, in which untouchability is abolished, rather it is criminalized through implementation of SC/ST Atrocities Prevention Act. But still caste is persisting. Therefore he argued that it could not lead to annihilation of caste. Now, what could possibly lead to annihilation of caste? He was just giving his opinion that promoting inter-caste marriages could possibly lead to annihilation of caste, because it is going to ensure that people of different caste are intermarrying. There will be intermixing of blood, there will be intermixing of genes. And since people of different castes are intermarrying, it means that we have achieved or reached to a situation in which people are not differentiating themselves on the basis of caste, in which people of lower caste, people of especially higher caste or Brahmins, they are going to give away their daughters to the people of lower caste or Dalits in marriage. It means that the concept of high and low has vanished, concept of hierarchy has vanished. And this is something that could potentially lead to complete undermining of caste system, complete destruction and annihilation of caste system. Okay. This is something that he argued, that it can potentially lead to annihilation of caste, intermixing of blood and genes. There will be no distinction or separation will be there. Higher caste giving their daughters away in marriage will be a true sign of dawn or emergence of equality.